Welcome back to the Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show. Moments away, clinical herbalist Dina Falconi. But first, a message from our good friends at Simple Grow.
Are you worrying about your plant growth? Provide your plants with what they need to grow to their potential. Simple Grow offers 100% organic worm castings at simplegrow.com. Unlike other worm casting products, when you order from Simple Grow, you are getting 100% worm castings, not filler plus worm castings. Promote ideal soil structure and aeration with Simple Grow's all-natural and odor-free worm castings. There's only one ingredient, worm castings.
That's it.
No chemicals or additives will seep into your food, and it doesn't smell like other fertilizers. For indoor and outdoor use, you can buy it by the bag, bundle, ton, or truckload. Check out what Simple Grow 100% worm castings can do for your plants and order today at simplegrow.com.
Well, Holly, let's go to the Proclamation Hotline, brought to you by Proclamation Goods, and bring in our guest for this week.
Dina Falconi is a clinical herbalist, educator, and food activist. She's also the author of Foraging and Feasting, a field guide and wild food cookbook, and creator with her son Sam of her popular Dina Falconi YouTube channel. Welcome to the program, Dina.
Thank you, Holly. Glad to be here.
Well, we thank you for coming on the program and not only educating Holly and ourselves, but all of our listeners, too.
So you have a focus on food activism. What is food activism and how did you get into it?
Well, food activism, maybe it's just a fancy way of saying helping people to eat healthy. And that means helping them find good food, which often means connecting folks to farms or to gardening and to cooking. So it's really about helping people to connect to healthy, nutrient-dense food that seems to be harder to find. And so, along those lines, I've been part of organizations like Slow Food, the Weston A. Price Foundation, and other organizations, and put on festivals where we connect people to farms. So the Family Farm Festival was something that I did with another friend for many years, and then also an ongoing monthly potluck series, which is, again, about eating nutrient-dense foods and educating folks about it. So it has a lot to do with linking people with healthy food, plus inspiring them to get them into the kitchen and to create healthy food, or someone to do it for them.
Right.
Yeah. So food activism is just really bypassing the food industry's profit-driven food agenda toward just helping people to remember that food, is about healing and about health. Yeah.
Well, many people want to forage but aren't sure how to start or are concerned that they may identify something incorrectly and have consequences. What are some good beginning tips for somebody who wants to begin to forage?
So they should have healthy fear. Foraging has risks. So one of the most important thing as a forager is to know how to ID plants, to know your plant. So 100% certainty before you ever consume anything. So patience is something that foragers need to develop. You don't just go out there, grab something, and put it in your mouth. The best ways to develop your foraging skill is tag along with expert or experienced foragers. That's one of the best ways. Practice, just like a new language. So you want to keep practicing the plants you're meeting, really knowing how to ID them. Books, the book we created, Foraging and Feasting, or that YouTube channel, the Dina Falconi, basically is just inculcating your brain with plant literacy, because we've been disconnected from that. So as a forager, you're relearning this very ancient yet simple skill, but it requires that practice. So for a new forager, don't get stressed out. Just go for it. Do it, meaning don't eat it, but do go out and ID plants. Connect with your local foraging clubs or your even mushroom clubs. Get lots of books out. Do a lot of viewing on YouTube, like my channel. So anyway, I would say those would be the beginner's tips, but don't be in a rush. That's all. Go slowly.
Now, it obviously foraging is a regional thing based on the plants. What is one of the things that you enjoy going foraging for?
Well, as a forager, that changes. So it's like a kaleidoscope of food. So it's really something you can't say. But right now, for example, here in the Northeast, where I'm in the Mid-Hudson Valley, New York, The berries are starting to pop. The elderflowers are popping. The flowers, like daylily flowers. So I basically follow the foraging season, and many things, like right now we're moving out of nettle leaf season and the leafy green season, more like we're moving out of, I would say, the rich early spring wild salads and more into the fruits and flowers right now. And then when the fall comes, those leafy greens often return. We do still have leafy greens, but that's a long answer to your question. I can't say what I most love because I love them all. It's like, yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. People will use nettle for seasonal allergies. Does it work well for that? And then how is it best used for those allergies?
Right. So this is, again, goes back to that idea of the food piece where folks might just try to rely on an herb to help with health issues, sort of how people use allopathic medicine. But as a holistic approach, really it's food first and also lifestyle. So when somebody's dealing with allergies, you want to make sure that they're eating a healthy, nutrient-dense menu, their blood sugar is stable, they're sleeping well. Those all are key pieces. Then you can bring in nettle. And nettle leaf can be consumed throughout the year, actually, to develop some help in what would we say a hyperhistamine response. So it can help moderate histamine response to people who have allergies. But I would say that the nettle seed in green stage, this very specific moment when the nettle seed is forming, is even better for sort of shutting down or slowing down the histamine response. So somebody who might be getting a lot of sneezing and drippy nose from some sort of seasonal allergy can eat a little bit of those seeds, and it actually helps to just shut it off or shut it down. So it's pretty amazing. It doesn't always work that way. So you have nettle seed to nibble on, and then you also have nettle leaf tea infusions. Infusion is a long, steep tea. So those are two ways that I've seen folks use nettle. But also don't forget there are many other wonderful herbs. So goldenrod is another excellent herb. Solidagos, the genus Solidagos, for dealing with histamine response and a lot of sinus allergy action that gets kicked in by pollens and things like that. But just to go back to that point that herbs are helpful along with lifestyle that helps. So that's always really important to mention.
Now, you mentioned nettles. Many people may instantly think of stinging nettles. I can't, that's dangerous. How do you properly harvest such a plant in that situation?
Great. Yeah, good question. So it is the stinging nettle that we're talking about here. It's called Urtica dioica, and it has hairs that release different chemicals into our skin and cause a lot of welting. So to harvest it properly, I mean, you could become there's a term called urtication where you can get stung by it, and some people think it's therapeutic. I'm not recommending that, but it isn't like the end of the world, and in fact, some people even do it to help with rheumatic and stagnant things related to arthritis. But back to how to harvest without getting stung is you wear good gloves, long sleeves, scissors, so you protect yourself. It isn't prickers. It doesn't prick you. It needs to access your skin to sort of inject this chemical activity. And then to prepare it, well, typically when you make an infusion, which is how a lot of people use it for supporting health, that will also help reduce allergenic response, we make an infusion, and that's usually with dried nettle. So you would harvest it before it flowers. You would cut it with the stalk intact. You would dry it, and then you would use all of that to make a long steeped tea. And so that means that you're going to boil water. You're going to use about a half an ounce of herb, that's the nettle, leaf, and stalk, per quart of boiling water, and you would put that into a vessel that you can put a lid on, let it steep for about 4 hours. So that's how you prepare it. And stinging nettle doesn't sting you, when you've cooked it or mechanically mashed it. You kind of destroy the stingers as well, the ability for it to sting you. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Great.
So we are talking with Dina Falconi, and she is a clinical herbalist, author, educator, and YouTuber. Your book, Foraging and Feasting, tell us more about it and why our listeners should pick up a copy.
They got to pick up a copy. They got to get one. No, it's a fabulous book. I created it out of a sort of void for, I've been collecting books for 30 plus years, herb books, foraging books, and I felt like this book wasn't in the library yet. It didn't exist. So it's a guide that is visually there for you, unlike most other field guides. This isn't a field guide in the sense of a pocket guide. It's a large book, so you're not necessarily going to put it in your bag. But in the field, it is a field guide in the sense that it really helps you to key out or properly identify a plant with the visual characteristics. That's where Wendy Hollander, who's an amazing botanical illustrator, worked with me. Sorry, Wendy, enslaved you for a good 3.5 years to really get those pages to help the forager know they have the right plant. Again, it's back to ID, correct ID. So it's unique in that it's going to hold your hand and have you confidently ID plants. That's an amazing asset in a book. Like that, it's hard to find in books. And then it plugs those plants into recipes. So we have 100 master recipes. And again, you're held very closely, but not in a restrictive way, because the master recipes are there to hold your hand throughout the growing season. So let's say you want to make a soup, a wild green soup. Depending on the wild greens that are in season, you're going to plug different ones in. So a master recipe, that's the templates that I really resonate with, and they have to do with freeing up the forager to use whatever is at hand, but giving you a solid framework, a solid recipe framework to have success in a recipe. So like the ice cream recipe, the same. Depending on the fruit that's moving through the season, you'll put that into the master recipe, or the gratins, or the pestos. So there's 100 master recipes that hold your hand in the kitchen, and then we feature 50 plants that are commonly available, I'd say the majority of them, throughout the cosmopolitan world. And so really, it's a book about giving one confidence to forage and to feast. And it's a beautiful book. So it's also something just pleasing to look at. So that's why everyone should own a copy.
Absolutely. How did you get into foraging? Where did you learn about it?
It came out of my preteen years as a young girl, a girl in New York City, looking for ways to, it sounds crazy, but I got involved with food as healing, food as medicine at that early age. And from that, the seeds for foraging were planted. The idea that your food and medicine grows freely from the earth, and that food that you forage, like, for example, the nettle, is an amazingly nutrient-dense vegetable, more so than most plants that we can buy in the supermarket. So we have nutrient density. So I was chasing for, that idea of health through food, and then foraging can segue very nicely into that. So it came from that wish to just really nourish myself. Yeah.
Fantastic. So we've really enjoyed having you on the program. How can people find out more about you?
So the website is botanicalartspress.com, or foragingandfeasting.com will redirect you to that same site. And there you can sign up for our newsletter, for my weekly newsletter. Also, we have a blog there. And also the YouTube channel. They can go to Dina Falcone YouTube. I think it's a funny thing to say. I'm not a YouTuber necessarily, but anyway, so folks can find me through the website and the YouTube channel, which, I think those would be probably Instagram also. You can do foraging and feasting Instagram.
Well, Dina, we greatly appreciate the opportunity you've given us by allowing us to learn some of the information about foraging from you, not only for Holly and myself, but all of our listeners.
It's my pleasure, and thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.